Welcome to the newsroom, comic fans. You see the hat. It is serious comic news time. We got to talk about what's going on with Oni Press and Lion Forge. So let's get into it. And for more comics content, head over to genoscomics.wordpress.com. All right, people. Heads off. We're in the newsroom because we got some comic news that just came out yesterday. A lot of stuff going on. But before we get further into it, I just want to say, just send out some best wishes to everyone from Oni Press who is recently unemployed because there was a round of layoffs at the company. A lot of editors took to Twitter to announce, and I imagine Facebook as well and Instagram, to announce that they were recently laid off by Oni Press. And it's just another kind of event that's kind of stemmed from their merger with Lion Forge. So they created its Oni Lion Forge publishing group. But the parent company is Polarity, which was started just before, right around the merger by the owner or co-founder of Lion Forge. So a whole lot of stuff going on, and we want to get into it here. But before we get into it again even further, I want to read the statement that they released on the Oni Press Twitter yesterday, and let me tell you, it is quite a statement. As you will see here, it's just one of the most ridiculous things that I've ever read, and I imagine it just kind of floored everybody reading it. But let's get into it. With wildly sensationalistic rumors circulating and false information spreading, we'd like to reiterate that recent personnel changes at Oni Lion Forge Publishing Group were made with the sole purpose of evolving the company and brand and positioning it for long-term success. We're proud of our long history in the business and continually strive to be better and do better. We started Lion Forge Comics 11 years ago specifically to make great creator-driven content, and Oni's history is 25 years in the business. Within a new framework that is being worked on now, we remain committed to publishing groundbreaking content, embracing pioneering creators, and advancing authentic diversity and inclusion. We see an incredibly exciting future, not just for the company, but for our fans and content consumers worldwide. So, a lot to take in there, and one of the main things that really kind of stuck out to me was the content consumers at the end, which is going to be kind of, I'll jump back into it for a good chunk of the video, the later part of this video, but just call it, you mention fans, but then you say content consumers, which is just a wild thing, a wild choice of words. And I feel like if you would have had better PR, that probably would have steered you away from, like, you know what, that's probably not a good choice of words. But it also lends itself to the fact that this is beyond just comics. Then I kind of posed that question on Twitter, like, okay, like, genuine question, what other forms of media do Oni Forge, or Oni Press and Lion Forge use or utilize? Because you wouldn't say content consumers if you were all comics. So I imagine this is leading to TV, film, animation, even audio as well. And the parent company Polarity is all about IP farming. Apparently, some people responded to me on Twitter talking about them just looking for just IP. They want to get some IP, and obviously, when you're talking about that, it's beyond comics. It's especially going into TV and film, and animation is heavy. So those are things you just have to be on the lookout for. And I also kind of speculated that we should be on the lookout for some NFT announcements, because obviously that has been we've seen a big increase of that within the world of comics. And there's another subscription service similar to Substack. I forgot the name of it, but a big portion of their business deals with NFTs as far as art pieces and commissions. So I was going to touch on that in another video, but there's just something to be on the lookout for. NFTs are, like, they're here, and I make my stance clear. I do not like them. I don't support them at all. I'm curious, share in the comments below what your stance on NFTs is, because we've just seen it all over the place and just what it's done as far as being an outlet for creators, which I can agree with, like, I'm okay with, as far as just them finding other outlets just to, like, monetize and just bring more income for just playing their craft, their trade. But as far as the environmental factors and effects and everything else that's gone on with NFTs, that part I don't agree with. So yeah, just share your thoughts in the comments below. But yeah, so we got Polarity, who is the parent group of Oni Press and Lion Forge, and we have this round of layoffs, which you've seen before. And unfortunately, when we're talking about comic news, can't always just be good. We got to take the bad with the good as well. And previous times it's been deaths of creators, or hey, new comic announcements. Hey, look at these, some new titles. And speaking of new titles, if you remember, I don't know, a couple years ago now, I announced there was a title I was looking forward to that I pre-ordered that sounded cool, indie title called Render. That was from Oni Press, and unfortunately it got canceled. I think I had a few issues pre-ordered, and all of a sudden it was supposed to get delayed, and then never heard anything else from it. So that's another part of this. And then when you talk about these layoffs and corporate restructures and everything coming from this merger deal, and you don't always know the ins and outs of it, what's going to happen to any books that creators have down the pipeline and any deals that they have? Because now you've lost that kind of company conduit with the company, the editors or several editors, and then just kind of leaves. I can imagine some creators just kind of being left out in the wind, like, okay, yep, this deal you had with them before, it no longer applies here, so there's a door. And it's not even really the door if you're just a creator, because you're not actually employed with a company, so you can always just be like, all right, they just choose not to work with you anymore, which is just unfortunate all around. And not even just, and at the beginning I said, like, sending best wishes to all those editors who just lost their jobs, but we don't always hear about, a lot of times we will hear about those kind of more frontline people as far as editors. But imagine there's not always office space if you merge in companies. Who gets let out from the office? People who might be receptionists or custodians or do other things around an office. Did any of them lose their jobs? We might hear more about editors because we're more in tune with the more comic facing people and the people we see in the credits, on the credits page in the book, and so, or social media even. So a lot of times those other people who might work in office who get laid off, we won't hear about them, we won't hear from them, and they're just never talked about. So just in case if there are, I want to send best wishes to them as well. And also to the social media people or persons, if they still even are employed there for Oni Press or even Lion Forge, let them be. They're just trying to do their job. I'm sure they were just as stunned as anybody else by this news within the comic community. Like, oh man, now they're just kind of looking at, okay, this is what I'm gonna have to deal with today. So don't lay into them. Direct it at Oni Press and Lion Forge and Polarity, because this is all they're doing. The social media people are just there handling accounts, sharing the messages, and responding to any comments in vitriol. So please try not to hate on them. They're just those regular people just doing their job. But yeah, so that's just kind of, I don't want to share this just in case you hadn't heard the news. And I always like sharing the news on here, on my blog as well, just because I always like the ins and outs of the comic industry, all the behind the book stuff, and just kind of sharing that and kind of connecting with people, keeping this conversation going. And because it's already been started, obviously, when people take to Twitter and you just see a string of people saying, well, today was my last day at Oni Press. After this many years of, oh, today is my last day. And kind of just search Oni Press and you kind of see like a string of editors saying, oh, this is my last day. This is my last day. Like, damn, it's like another round of layoffs. We've seen this before. And with other publishers, and it's usually a round of editors. Okay, well, they got to get let go. We've seen that. I think we've seen that DC too. I always like, no publisher is invulnerable to anything like this. There's always a bigger company above, and it's just kind of one of those things of business, and especially within the world of comics, because comics is just interesting business, like, good and bad. So, and people always talk about, well, comics are dying, this and that, and well, that's why these layoffs happen. That's possible. Other times it's just restructuring, or companies just kind of going in different directions, especially with IP farming. And again, IP farming, because you're trying to get these comic businesses or comic IP into other fields, because there's more money obviously in movies and TV and those big deals. So that's why a lot of people point out within this statement, if you take out the word it actually says Lion Forge Comics, they don't mention comics at all within this whole statement. So, and even further, just going to pick apart this statement, it's just such an oddly worded thing. And talking about the rumors, well, you just laid off chunk of people. So all these people just out of nowhere don't have a job anymore. So what else are we supposed to take about that? And a couple other points within the statement that I wanted to touch on is the idea of them positioning the company for long-term success. And that just really kind of hints at the issues within the comic book industry and just publishing in general, but specifically comic book industry has its own set of problems, some of which it's created of its own. And I think as the comic community, we all have to, no matter what side you're on, fan, collector, reader, publisher, creator, editor, we all have to kind of acknowledge that some of these issues within the comic industry, pun unintended, were created by the comic book industry itself. So whenever you look at problems, comic book industry is doing this and that, this kind of, we have these problems that were never solved. And then as time gone on, and we've seen just time increase, the fan base kind of grow, and we got all the multimedia ventures and everything else as far as technology. We've seen people struggle with the rise and increase in the way we use technology and the way we consume comic books, and everybody's kind of struggling in different ways, and we've had all these problems along the way. So planning for long-term success is something that everybody should strive for, but also have to be fully fully acknowledge what those problems and obstacles have been over the years and what they could be in the future based off of things that have been done in the past. So one specifically, creators' rights, and they talk about. I saw someone else mentioned that Oni Press has done some shady shit as far as creators' rights and rights of IP that they try to kind of finagle in their way in hopes of pushing for a TV or film deal down the line. And the last part of the statement that I want to touch on is the reference Lion Forge is 11 years in the business and Oni Press is 25 years in the business. And some people on Twitter pointed out, well, you talk about Oni Press being around for 25 years, but who's still there that has been around for any amount of time? Nobody. It's been nobody. So it's all just a brand new group of people kind of backing the company and backing creators and helping put these stories out there and these comics out there. And now what, kind of going back to the long-term success, what does that really even mean if you get this merger, which really was announced several years ago? So I thought it was kind of odd that all of this kind of layoffs happening now when Polarity has existed as their parent company once it was created from the announcement of this merger probably. So all of this kind of just, I guess that's probably just kind of one of those things where it's a kind of business thing. And okay, I get when a deal is even announced or talking about, obviously there's a significant timeline before it's truly finalized, but I imagine still it's talking about 3-4 years now. What would still need to be worked on there? But again, that's just that corporate restructuring and kind of going at it for just the future and kind of going, not, I won't say different direction, but definitely this is far beyond just comics. Again, content consumer is such an odd phrase. But again, I just want to share this news for you. We're in the newsroom, baby. Geno's Comics, bringing all the good stuff for you, just in case you have not heard about this. And definitely curious if you into this kind of stuff, you're into the news and the comic news and just kind of seeing the industry as a whole and everything that kind of comes out of it. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Again, hope everybody that just recently was laid off is able to find their footing, and hopefully they have just a good support in place until they do, because it's a crazy world out there right now. So good luck to all of them. And yeah, just be on the lookout. I imagine, again, we're going to be hearing more about this. Especially we got San Diego Comic-Con coming up next week, and I do believe I did see something about Oni Press not even having a booth there anymore. But so a lot of publishers are pulling out, so it's probably just kind of one of those things that probably wasn't related to this, but it's possible that it did. So, and just be on the lookout for news. And again, my speculation, we're going to see something about NFTs in the near future, if not maybe even in the last half of this year. Here we are now, so I expect to hear something before the end of the year. So who's to say? Just drop all your speculative ideas, what you think that all of this could mean. What can we expect to hear more from Oni Lion Forge Publishing Group and Polarity in the near future or anytime? So yep, share your thoughts and comments below. Happy reading, happy hunting, happy collecting. This is Geno's Comics. Thanks for watching and peace out.